Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Friday, October 17th, 2025. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God we're free. And so I'm so happy to be back with you here on the channel. I'll jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you here on Friday. Sorry I couldn't be back sooner, but I'm here now, and we've got a ton of news. We basically have, Trump trying to bring peace through prosperity and nations being sovereign versus the agents of chaos and globalism to have endless war. And incredible stuff at the White House today. So much happening. Bolton indicted, pleading not guilty. Massive flipping. And it's going to be coming as they step by step go through these indictments that are rolling out all around. We have, it looks like very soon, we're going to be seeing the Brennan indictments coming, grand jury in Pennsylvania. We've got Chris Wray and what's going on with him, with also investigation indictments expected soon. So many are coming up, and so this is huge. And so, yeah, we're very excited about it, but it's a lot of work, and all of us, of course, are the prayer warriors, but also the local action warriors. So we'll jump in with the news, and I'll start by saying thank you so much for supporting the channel. You make it happen. I'm so thankful for all of you who make it happen. It's my blessing. So I'm so glad to be back with you here today, and I'll jump in with my sponsor at the end of the video to, of course, tell you about them. c60evo.com/YAFTV, 10% off YAFTV code, but we'll get in there at the end of the video. So I'm so glad to be back with you here tonight. Let's jump in. Of course, tomorrow, we're very happy that Trump took his flight to Mar-a-Lago this afternoon. He basically left before Zelensky. Okay, Zelensky was at Blair House meeting with all of the chaos agents, and on the phone with van der Leyen and everybody from Europe, the coalition of the willing that want World War III, and pressuring, thinking they have leverage to do so. Trump to give security agreements to basically say that we want America to say they're going to enforce any deal that's coming up with U.S. troops on the ground, and of course air defense and all of it. And I don't believe they got any of it. And Trump and Putin, of course, are now going to be meeting in Hungary, hosted by Viktor Orban in Budapest. And this is happening in a couple weeks. And then next week, we're getting Marco Rubio with Lavrov, etc. I wonder if Anna Paulina Luna is going to be doing her meetup with Dmitriev at the same time, the Russian Q. It'll be interesting to see what goes down. But basically, we've got that happening. And it looks like President Trump, when he met with Zelensky today at the White House, I'm getting lots of flashes on my video right here, right now, so it's interesting. But when Zelensky met with Trump at the White House, we got basically Trump saying outright that he doesn't want to give the Tomahawks, that for one thing, the U.S. needs the Tomahawks. We don't have an endless supply. We've been giving them, of course, to Israel, right? But basically saying, we want peace and we don't want to escalate, and this is clear escalation. And one thing that's not really being talked about too much is that when he talked with Putin yesterday, and even before their talk, and of course strategically placed that he would talk to Putin before Zelensky's arrival today, is that Putin is basically like, I've got 2 million Russians that are part of the reserve. Okay, they can be called up anytime. I will call up 2 million of my reservists to go in and basically do the meat grinder. We'll just do the meat grinder, this war of attrition. If you bring Tomahawks to this, where you're going to allow Ukraine to hit Russia in Moscow or St. Petersburg or anywhere else, Notice he's not saying we've got nukes, we've got this, we can, do some sort of Israel Samson options. What Putin is not that. Okay, he's very staid, very calm, and of course has been doing this the whole time, waiting and planning and waiting to get to the place where Trump has also been waiting and waiting out NATO, as they know and learn, especially with U.S. tariffs, economically, the demand that NATO meet its financial requirements. They have no army, they have no armaments, they don't have anything, okay, in Europe to fight a war, World War III, that they've been trying for so long. And warmongers like Bolton, now indicted today, of course, the timing on that was perfectly planned. Okay, they know. Bolton's been taking money from the oligarchs out of Ukraine. Simple, very well known aspect of that was Victor Pinchuk, who basically funds the entire Atlantic Council, and so much to do with the Ukraine war with Kolomoisky. He paid Bolton to the tune of $115,000 for supposedly speaking engagements, Bill Clinton style, to do with Ukraine. Basically, these people are all wrapped up in it, and as they roll out the indictments, it's all interconnected with this international peace, this international politics, this international globalism, and the takedown of the deep state here, okay, in tandem with the fight of the globalist cabal, okay, the global tyranny cabal that we're all fighting, as Trump is saying, peace, prosperity, peace through prosperity with nation states, okay, doing equitable trade deals, okay, and so this is all going down, and so basically, yeah, Putin's like, hey, how about we, we bring up our 2 million reservists and we just grind through Kiev, right? And so this is the what's going down, and we're going to see what happens in the next week, and then the next week after that with Trump going to Hungary. Very exciting, and I believe this will be we've got no kings tomorrow. We've got so much going on. So the things that will derail this, of course, is the shrinking globalist regime, but very, very powerful, doing their FFs, right? Doing their attacks where they can blame Russia, they can blame this, whatever. That's what's going down. Interesting things that happen in the talk out of the White House today was people asking questions such as, what about that tunnel, that railway tunnel that Putin offered to build across the Bering Strait, right? It's like 3 miles from USA to, or 6 miles something, of Alaska to Russia. This tunnel that could be a trade for energy. It could be so much, but how about that? And it was just really great because Zelensky's sitting in the room, and Trump was like, I just heard about this recently. And, we know he didn't just hear about this recently. This tunnel thing that Putin has agreed to pay for way back to the time of Obama. Because Putin has been way back in the day saying, how about you let Russia into NATO? How about we do, peace and prosperity? And so kind of beat Trump to that table as far as having the political might to do so. But it was funny because Trump said to Zelensky, hey, what do you think about this tunnel from Russia to Alaska? And Zelensky was like, I really don't like that idea, right? And so very interesting because afterwards we had Zelensky do his little press conference. This hasn't been done before, where Zelensky gets his own press conference after post meeting with Trump. Trump's on the plane to Mar-a-Lago, thank goodness, getting some rest, badly needs it. Supposedly took the COVID jab, supposedly took the flu shot in the last couple of weeks during his most recent physical there. And that's scary as heck. And of course, people are warning, different doctors coming out and saying, hey, we know he's on these statin drugs and on aspirin. He doesn't need them. They're thinning out the blood. It's really detrimental to the brain, especially for cognitive function, etc. And so there's a lot of speech coming out about that. Somebody come in and intervene in Trump's medical care. But basically Zelensky came out saying we didn't begin this war, right? That was his big kind of takeaway. But his huge takeaway was we need the coalition of the willing, need the security guarantees from the USA. And we need that ceasefire, right? Because we need time to set up some sort of massive attack and blame Russia. And as I've been saying for the last month or so, the reporting of that great Ukraine reporter whose name isn't at the top of my head right now. She's been exiled from Ukraine, taken off YouTube, and just being completely banned everywhere. But she was warning, of this thing of Transnistria there in Moldova, and this area that's very Russian supporting in Moldova on the border there with Ukraine, that they could try to set off some kind of massive FF there and blame it on Russia. And suddenly now I'm getting this thing where looks like my internet keeps going in and out. It's so interesting as I'm talking about sensitive subjects. So I'm sorry if there was a little pause. Anywho's, so yes, they're trying to gin up something to try to force the USA into this, but it's losing. And this this is Trump's war of attrition as well. This waiting out, because they can't come up with anything to force Trump to do anything, or to gin up some sort of amazing way to fight World War III on their own. So we're going to keep covering it, and we will go as we go. And as the reminder of John Bolton, his involvement, it gets into, we're going to be seeing, because it's step by step. And so John Bolton, I think where he's going to be learning some gymnastics, right? Especially the flip, right? He's double back flip. He's going to be learning the flip, and I think that's why they brought him in early, because his crimes are very severe. These are espionage, super treason crimes. Okay, this isn't simple. This isn't lying to Congress, right? Like Comey got. This is 18 counts, and 8 of transmitting, 10 of holding national security documents, and the creation of these chat groups, and everything to do with transmitting national security information. But it's going to get more into the money and the selling for entertainment purposes only of this information. And that's going to reach into, I believe, AG Barr, right? And this all gets back into, we had the Clintons have their meetup there on the Hill. They were supposed to be testifying, I think, yesterday, and then in another couple days, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton to be testifying to everything Epstein, and that got postponed, interestingly enough, right? And Hillary's kind of been coming out saying, oh, well, Trump did a good thing in the, with the Gaza peace plan in Israel and everything. But it's very interesting because, of course, what do we have? We have the posthumous, right? We have the memoir from Valhalla, right, where Virginia Giuffre, who, of course, is the kind of prime Epstein groom stolen out of Mar-a-Lago, this strange combi there of where Virginia Giuffre was supposedly killed in this bus accident, right, in Australia, where all the witnesses said there's no way that she could have been killed. It was just a really minor accident, and then she's dead. That's, but then this memoir comes out, right? And I wonder if we'll get a Charlie Kirk biography, autobiography next, right? From Valhalla, but, for entertainment purposes only, just saying. But yeah, so we get her memoir coming out, where she kind of spills more beans on Prince Andrew, and he loses his royal titles, all of them, the rest of them, in the last couple days. And so he is no longer the Duke of York. Okay, the Duke of York is no longer, and it's very interesting as Trump has been going heavy with the royal family over there, and of course we know he just loves him some Prince William. So there's definitely tide changes happening, and it's kind of very important as occupied UK. Everything London, everything Sadiq Khan, and now here with Mamdani and the takeover, the caliphate of New York City, the two, New York and the city of London being, of course, the massive powerhouses to do with finance, etc., as the World Economic Forum wants to take over and kind of quash these power centers, where they have a cyber meetup happening this week with Larry Fink, of course, now the head of the World Economic Forum, where they're doing another Cyber Polygon style, tabletop exercise, just like they did with the V and all of that. And they did Cyber Polygon. They just said, well, what if, there's a massive hack attack, takes down the entire grid. So they're gaming that again right now. That's happening this week. And so it is, it's all on, right? It's all happening. So this situation of, the Clintons being put off, this flipping up situation that I'm talking about, it leads ultimately, right, to Obama, the Clintons, the City of London, the Pilgrim Society. I mean, it goes and goes and goes. And so there's going to be this focus on dismantling the deep state really is happening. And everybody wants like massive movie like, collapse of the deep state. But it is such an insidious, incredible, incredibly orchestrated for so long, basically, at least 80 years, really, since after the Second World War, the creation of it, that we're looking at what is, the very, very arduous task of taking it down one by one and the gymnastics of the flip. And so we're hearing that Jack Smith, of course, there's the probe into disbarring him and a probe into his, his special counsel being illegal and all of this. But it looks like there's a grand jury convened in Florida specifically to do with Jack Smith as well. And this gets into what will lead up to the J6 committee. And this might be, we have one of the, of course, Nancy Pelosi and J6 and the creation of the committee. Her freaking out on a reporter the other day from Lindell TV and basically telling her to shut up, etc., as she knows that it's coming for her. There's a whole other thing aside to do with Nancy Pelosi that I might leave for Monday and has to do with CIBANCO, which gets into, of course, James Comey, and it gets into HSBC, and it has to do with the funding of the cartel activity in the USA, super ramped up, and the massive money laundering, etc., that has come down through the Biden regime. And so CIBANCO, I think that's way larger even probably for Pelosi than J6, even though J6 is very cut and dry. CIBANCO gets into massive money laundering to do with the whole deep state. So, okay, so let's see where we're going to go. I'll focus a little bit more on World Economic Forum, this cyber meeting going on this week. They're literally calling it the new cyber order. Can't they come up with something, better? They don't have better writers. They don't have better, they have the best think tanks in the world. But no, the new cyber order, tabletop exercise for basic Cyber Polygon 2.0 for mass hack attack that destroys, that internet access for the entire world and brings down banking and everything else. But of course, they have other topics, right? Like they can never let that NACs go, the National Asset Corporations, with the programmable ledger out of the business, the BIS, right? The Bank of International Settlements. And that they want to basically override, okay, the stock exchanges with this new stock exchange based on people not using natural resources, okay. They want to cancel our access to, food, farming, the wild, hunting animals, nature, everything. This gets into, of course, farming humans into 15-minute cities and making the world, depopulation's huge, obviously, but this is about, keeping the people off the land and not using the land for anything. And so that's a huge part of their meetup. And of course, they have neural technology because, that's what they need is access to the brains. And this has to do with the interbody nano network. And it is basically trying to formulate ways that they can make it so that it is, a UN global compact, because the World Economic Forum now has equal status with the UN. Like they've signed common documents, and the World Economic Forum is straight up in the UN. And we've got Mike Waltz, right, the failed NSA National Security Advisor, stuck in there at the UN. I think he thinks that he's there just to manage what's going to go down in Gaza with the Turkish troops and the UN presence there. But it's so much time for Trump to basically get out of the UN, to get the US out. I get it. He's getting out of UNESCO again, like he did last time. Thank goodness, right? UNESCO, started by way back in the day. Eugene, Brave New World guy, his brother, right? George H.W. Bush was head of UNESCO. It's all about eugenics, and it's all about dumbing down, taking over the education of the world's population, and teaching them to be slaves and servants. And so that's fantastic, but we really need Trump to get out of UN totally. And I get it that there's the need to control the UN, but they're coming heavy and hard. They don't seem to be letting up, even though they have the money, but they don't have the military. They don't have, they don't have the people. Okay, you can have all the money you want, but if Trump and the nation states, populace, leaders, and people aren't participating, then you can't just do what you want with money. And I think that is just fantastic and so amazing. And I think we're looking at some really different times ahead, but it's not going to be easy, as it hasn't been. And there is going to be a lot going down. And we know we've got the No Kings situation. I thought it was really hysterical that we had Governor Newsom coming out touting his $11 insulin as if that he created that, when they've kept it artificially high in California. But what Newsom is saying here, he came out and said the No Kings rally with Swalwell and Schiff and all of them out in California really want to go hard in California with this No Kings tomorrow. There's supposedly going to be 1,000 locations of the No Kings rallies tomorrow. So just stay away. Stay away from these places. This is, of course, could be, FF-a-palooza, right? It could be a situation where things go down that they are planning to, have something horrible happen, to blame ICE, to blame National Guard, whatever they're going to try to do. As Supreme Court, still hasn't given, as if Trump, as the executive, who is the one person with the oath to have to preserve the country, not just defend, not just the oath of defense of foreign and domestic, but to preserve the country. He has the ultimate right to bring in the National Guard, but he keeps going along with this thing with the Supreme Court and these judges. And of course, they're still holding up, putting in so many of these very, very important judges. But, how's it ever, what we get here is the Supreme Court holding up this decision with the Chicago National Guard going with Texas National Guard going into Chicago. And so what we're looking at here with Newsom is he's saying this No Kings movement is a declaration of independence. It's a declaration of independence from what we don't know. He's referencing King George, okay, who he completely is aligned with, okay, that whole cabal of the Pilgrim Society and the globalist takeover of the world, but especially America. And so he's going out there, he's telling people to be like the founding fathers, as if any of these people have any idea what the founding fathers, even who they were, what they wrote, what they said, what our founding documents are. It's just crazy town. And falling on deaf ears, I would say, because we have the Communist Party of the United States, international communists, all of them funding this No Kings, okay, and aligning with this No Kings 1,000 site rallies tomorrow, okay? And so this is all happening very interestingly while also in California tomorrow we have the Marines holding their 250th celebration, right? They have their 250th celebration being staged at Camp Pendleton in California. So the Marines, who literally did 250 years ago, were part of the stopping of the British control over America, doing their 250th celebration while they're having mass, no kings rallies. And I just think it's a poignant and ironic and interesting, but very, very, clear, delineated situation that we have internationalist, Marxist, funded by Soros et al. Alexander Soros, now he's married to Huma Abedin. They sort of bring that, red-green alliance together so heavy and hard. And Alex Soros is even more adept at creating multiple shell companies and avenues of how they're hiding money to fund all of this, right? Well, while we have Huma Abedin with her mother and her entire family being high up, serious, heavy duty Muslim Brotherhood people, okay, heavy, okay, and she was, Hillary Clinton's bestie, shall we say, the Wiener laptop, right? First she was with Wiener, and now she's married Alex Soros, and so huge situation here of the attempt to take over New York City, and of course London has fallen, right, to the caliphate. So but not, because the British people are super awake, super fighting back. Same in Ireland, it's spreading, and of course we are awake here and fighting. So we should really appreciate the fact that we have our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, because the fighting in these places, UK and Ireland, dealing with EU or the cabal in the UK and the City of London, taking away the rights, okay, of all these people, and making it so much harder. And so don't underestimate, okay, what's coming, because the massive jihadi movement in the United States is very real, very much a threat, and we have to, not pay attention to it. We have to not pay attention to it. We have to pay attention to it. We have to fight it, okay? And one person who wants to fight it, I know I'd been mentioning Chip Roy for AG of Texas, but I want to take that back. I'm now fully on the Aaron Wrights train. He was kind of the right-hand guy to AG Paxton. And it looks like Chip Roy, he's always been a little squirrely, right? A little bit middle of the road. I wouldn't call him Rhino, but he operates on multi-layers that I don't always agree with. But Aaron Wright's very clearly anti-Sharia, anti the takeover of Texas by Muslimification, as well as everything else globalist. And I want to put it out there. Aaron Wright for AG of Texas, formerly worked as an official with President Trump, has been fighting for Paxton. With the whole, fake impeachment there of Paxton, etc. So I wanted to mention that today while I had it on my mind. Okay, so I also want to mention, as we're going along here and we're watching, Abby Lowell defend Bolton, who pled not guilty, of course, as he's practicing his flips, right? He also defended Hunter Biden, right? Abby Lowell. And he's right up in there with Weissman and Eisen and all of the deep state lawyers, who are all, every time I see them on some MSN, MSM channel, they're just, they're coming unhinged because they know that the times are coming close, and they are losing a lot of protection, shall we say, money, protection. And they're going to be probably looking at, for entertainment purposes only, possible indictments to them themselves as this in of courts, legal deep state, this whole lawfare institution is getting hugely routed out. And then, but we still have some obstacles here, one of which being that keeps appearing to look more and more Todd Blanche, right? The assistant AG. He's kind of the Lisa Monaco of this administration, to Pam Bondi, holding up so much. As I said before, you know, we had to put in Lindsay Halligan into Virginia to not let Todd Blanche know what she was doing to get these indictments through the grand jury for James Comey. And we're seeing this around, people basically blocking through Trump's, you know, his team's specific instruction, and Stephen Miller and Chief of Domestic Policy, getting past the judicial global cabal, right, that's been installed in this country, to get these indictments going. And we're seeing this continuing to build with now what's coming with Chris Wray. That's looking very soon. Jack Smith, and of course Brennan, right? And we know Clapper is also there, coming along. So we're going to find out what goes down, and it is it's pretty exciting, right? It's pretty exciting. So let's see where I want to go. Okay, this is pretty important too. We have, as I mentioned, with the World Economic Forum meeting, you know, on cyberspace this week. We also have the World Health Organization pushing what is their AI pandemic tool. And this gets into cyberspace as well, so I'm sure it's interconnected with the World Economic Forum meetup. Is we're getting the WHO pushing this AI pandemic tool to monitor social media, okay, of course, for censorship, and to have their, you know, basically hack attack everybody who is anti-WHO, but also that they want to be able to use AI to monitor social media. And this is in the, you know, of course, you get into the United Nations and all the WHO members that there are 176 nation states, you know, to adopt this AI censorship surveillance tool. It's a surveillance tool, right? And we're seeing this as we're seeing the digital ID rollout in the UK and Canada and Europe, biometrics now replacing passports, okay, where they're not even issuing. The plan is to not issue passports in the EU anymore, that they will only be using your biology, okay? So it's your eyeballs, right, and your fingerprints, and you don't need that passport anymore. You no more stamps in your passport. You have to just go through there, they read your eyeballs and your fingerprints, and everything about you comes up, and that's how you travel. And so the infrastructure for that, of course, will be the China creation of the social credit score system. And, you know, put your finger in here, and if your fingerprint says that you are a bad boy or girl, can't ride the train, can't fly, you can't enter the country. And so same thing with your God-given, beautiful, individual, unique eyes, right? We you know, the soul of, you know, your soul comes through your eyes. You know, I think that makes me more disgusted than anything else, is that, you know, your whole God-given, you know, the beauty of the Holy Spirit, it comes through your eyes, right? In India, other places, they call it darshan, or what comes through your eyes, where people see. You can see these black eyes, like you look at Mamdani, right? And or, you know, these globalist creatures, right? And people say the reptilian eyes, but you look at these eyes, you know, people whose smiles don't reach their eyes, right? And they're just like Mamdani, like dead eyes. And you know, the use of the eyes to control us, I think, might be one of the most evil you know, tactics that I've heard, because I believe that our eyes truly are you know, ways that God sees through us, but also how people see into us and really know who we are. So it is disgusting to have the infinite versus the internet, and instead of us being seen and seeing each other so clearly and expressing love, expressing, you know, high vibration, beauty, all of these things. Instead, it's just, no, this is used to control you and shut you down, so they want you to avert your eyes to, you know, just like with COVID, now nobody hardly looks at each other, walk down the street, people are still crossing roads, doing strange stuff. And so, yeah, I wanted to say, and on that note with the cyber, what's going on in the cyber control world. We had the Al Smith dinner again, the annual Al Smith dinner. This is, basically Catholic archbishop that, they need the money. They need the money, right? And so this year again, they're giving some prize to Robert Kraft, right? He owns the Patriots, I believe, and of course Belichick. Belichick's gone. He's down in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, just destroying the Tar Heels down there. Just while the Patriots are like coming back for the first time in years. But anyway, Robert Kraft, he was celebrated at the Al Smith dinner there in D.C. last night, or New York City, and he got some kind of good stewardship or some kind of award, right? And he was talking about last year he had won something else, from Israel. He says from Israel, and they'd given him $1 million, and so, or maybe it was a couple of years ago, but he put this into creating. He did it, right? They created for him, gave him $1 million to launch this thing with his clout and his money. Growing up in Brookline, Massachusetts, where he basically has this thing called the Blue Square Alliance. So this is to replace the Ukrainian flag thing on your your social media, right? Everybody has to have a Ukraine flag there. Remember in the back of the day, Ukraine flag or else you suck, right? Now it is this Blue Square Alliance that basically announces that you're not an anti-Semite, okay? They just got to do it, right? Because we know this massive push and control, whether it's TikTok and across the board, with this huge Zionist buyout of massive amounts of the media. And so now we're getting this Blue Square Alliance versus hate of all kinds, they're saying. But no, this is really about that you have to announce that you're not an anti-Semite and add it to your social media or wear a little pin, little blue square, okay? I mean, it's so crazy, all the references. I go down the rabbit hole, just that they want you to wear something on your lapel telling who you are, but it is disgusting. And so, yeah, blue square, little blue square. So we'll see what goes on there, and we'll keep getting into it. But I did also want to mention this, which I believe has tentatively failed, but it has been massive. And again, the same globalist warfare here, largely, to support China in their efforts, as we're seeing this power control going on within the Chinese CCP leadership versus Xi and these elders, and what they're trying to do here with these huge rare earths and magnets, embargo basically against the U.S. or any countries that do supply chain to the U.S. Well, they're also uber connected to the International Maritime Net Zero Fund, right? This is again out of the UN, and so this has to do with the UN global carbon tax, where the UN is pushing this thing. It plays into the national asset corporations I talked about just earlier, but this has to do with the UN global carbon tax, where this is a new assault on the USA because everything's about routes, control of the routes on the ocean, right? So when we talk Bering Strait Tunnel, but the Suez Canal, creation of Israel so that the British could, one day try to capture and get control of the Suez Canal, and the creation of what they want to do with the Ben Gurion Canal, right, to connect the Med across through there. And so this is all about routes, but it's also about controlling who gets what in shipping and in supply chain. Okay, because it's controlling countries. 176 countries of the UN membership will get taxed. All those ships would be taxed per tonnage. Okay, but also, of course, connected to what kind of ship you have, how environmentally friendly it is, and of course, China is the biggest shipbuilding nation at this point, and they're also innovating with these AI technologies, etc. and how they're doing their ships. And they want this AI control and surveillance across all shipping. And just remember, it always comes back to Epstein somehow, right? It just never ends. He's the one, of course, who started the Clinton Global Initiative, Clinton Foundation, all the seed money. Well, same thing here with Ghislaine Maxwell, and I believe who is now her ex-husband. He was massive in creating this AI shipping whole infrastructure for how they would monitor and surveil through AI who was shipping what, all of this stuff. So it's very interesting how it all interconnects. And I'm going to link below Noor bin Laden's excellent Substack, where she goes into a bunch of this. But it's global economic, globalist economic warfare, especially on the U.S. Because this has to do with going against, what Trump is trying to do, okay, with the tariffs, etc., and with energy self-sufficiency for all nations. Look what he did with Saudi Arabia recently, getting them to lower their cost of oil. I think it's at $58 a barrel now, whereas, that doesn't help the U.S., economically, but it creates cheaper energy, okay, for everybody in the area. So it is about making energy cheaper. And instead, what we have here with the UN is they want to tax you, okay? They want to tax you for your energy output and your use of resources. And now this most recent one is this International Maritime Net Zero Fund, where money goes to the UN, okay? This carbon tax doesn't go, it goes to the UN in this net zero fund in separate coffers, okay, for this global government that they're creating, controlled by Larry Fink and the World Economic Forum. So we have Sean Duffy fighting back, Secretary of Transportation here, huge. And what we're hearing from Marco Rubio is that it looks like it's staved off for now, because what you had the net zero framework is what this comes out of, but we had this came out of the Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships, right? MARPOL, but the whole international coalition here that was trying to push this, the International Maritime Coalition, they were hugely China controlled and super aligned here with the UN, and that they were all pushing for this, and because of the majority that they have, and it looks like it has been staved off, but it's something to really pay attention to, and we're going to keep watching it, because it's a total threat to our food and supply chain and economic prosperity for this country and all nation states. So this is to do, of course, with all the shipping, corporations. We had Mitch McConnell fall the other day again, pretty hard fall. He's like 83 now, I think, and he's married to the Chow family, is a huge shipping magnate family that started in China with their shipping industry, brought hugely here into the U.S. Think Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, all of them, and so this is what we're looking at, and we're going to keep watching it. The AI, central organized, surveillance method that would be regulating this tax, right? So that's what we want. We want the UN to be regulating our tax, through AI. Yeah, that sounds really fantastic. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to just sort of finish up here for tonight on a Friday. It is very exciting what is going on with Trump being able to give us this next couple of weeks, right? No Tomahawks to Ukraine. I believe that he has been waiting out the EU cabal and proving to them that they can't do anything without him, and that the USA is not going to be providing troops. And I think that we just have to give it a little more time there. So I might be leaving it there. There's a lot more going on. We had these hacks in several airports the other day, supposedly pro-Hamas hacksters put out pro-Hamas messages in airports out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Winnipeg, Canada, various other places. We're hearing now that they're putting out on mainstream media that Hamas has, refused to fully disarm. So we'll see what's going to go down there over the weekend, and we'll keep doing it. And like I said on Monday, I'll get more into the CIBANCO stuff here with Pelosi, why she's really so nervous as she dodders around. Nervous and angry, right? Even her daughter was always saying, don't mess with Nana, right? She comes out of D'Alessandro crime family there out of Baltimore, right? And before she, took California by storm, right? With her criminal behavior for entertainment purposes only, right? And D'Alessandro, her dad, has that square in Haifa, Israel, named after him. And so, okay, I think I'm going to be leaving it there for tonight, just because I'm feeling a little bit kind of done. But I wanted to mention, and I know this is, might seem like a minor detail to most people, but Trump did have host this thing 2 nights ago that was this ballroom dinner, right, where all his donors are in there who are basically paying to build this ballroom in the White House that Trump wants to be able to host, 600, 700 people that come in for huge, USA functions to basically make the White House great again. And he's done so much to do so. And the only president in basically, 100 years, right? He was talking about how, it hasn't been since forever that anybody's done anything. He was talking about different presidents way back in like the 1920s who had added, different parts of the White House. But literally since then, there's been nothing. And for entertainment purposes only, if you remember back in the day, all the stories of the Clintons stealing silver, like just pillaging, the White House. And he said after Biden was here, it was just, disgusting. And, we know it was because we know who was in there. And so what Trump had to say while he was at this ballroom host dinner of the donors. Basically, he said, I find doing this very relaxing, very relaxing, right? This huge, like massive multi-million-dollar renovation that he is doing. And, he's like, it's what I do. I build stuff and I love to do it. And for me, doing this is like, just mind time away from the massive, massive, massive ongoing daily incredible crises. And so I think it's amazing. I think he's amazing. And I think that his ability to endure whatever they shoot into him or at him, or, I'm really glad he's getting some rest this weekend. And we pray for all the processes that are going on to dismantle the deep state as these indictments unroll. So much going on, local activism. You have Moms for Liberty down there in Orlando doing their huge annual gathering this weekend. Totally awesome. I think next weekend no, 2 weekends from now. I think actually 3 weekends from now, I think in Austin, Texas, you'll have Children's Health Defense annual summit and get together happening in Austin, Texas. Everything Maha going on down there. If you want to check that out, I'll link it below. Going to be an amazing event. And just so get busy, because this is the time, as much as we want to just chill out over the weekend, use a little bit of time considering how you can get involved locally, because the local stance that you take is going to be so important with what's coming, okay? Because we are going to be looking at massive, massive fight and pushback ahead. And it's only our local areas, you getting involved locally, you being the local patriot who takes on the job of being on the city council, the town council, being the assessor. There's so many jobs, okay, that are so important to infrastructure when it comes to, it used to be Agenda 21, then it was Agenda 30, now it's Agenda 50, okay? And that's the carbon net zero tax thing that they're planning here, and the natural asset corporation. So being able to fight that locally is so important, and especially as we're seeing the AI center rollout. to fight for the rights of the people in your area, to water, okay, to pollution, to everything that is going to become, this AI, space fence lockdown. Because, if there's one reason, that we would ever want there to be a little pause, okay, it would be in the building of this golden dome, or just the capturing of us more and more into this internet versus the internet versus the infinite, where this blue light, the EMFs, the massive attacks that they do on our bodies and soul, the capturing of this interbody nano network is so important to fight. And I'm going to be talking more about that next week as well again. And so, have fun this weekend. I hope you do get some relaxation, great family time, fellowship, worship time, all of it. And I've been meaning to mention next 4th of July, for the 250th anniversary, you're going to have Pastor Rodney Brown, doing, I believe I mentioned this before, but doing a great thing in Washington, D.C., where I believe for 4 or 5 days, or 4 days, July 1st to July 5th, in D.C., right on the mall, there's going to be a huge gathering. He's asking for there to be 250,000 baptisms, okay, and a huge revival. Go to revival.com, and you can read all about it there. He's fantastic and does fantastic work. So there's just so much going on, where these revivals are happening. And one thing that I find so exciting is that you see in Gen Z and Gen Alpha and the young people that with all of the onslaught, all of the massive attack through especially digital, the space fence I'm talking about, through the digital media, the social media, the addiction in time, just the brain training to these mechanisms, and the total, just attempt to take over the mind of the children and the young people, that you're seeing a huge, some of the best generations rising right now, in spite of that. And so that God, that infinite God, comes in anyway, right? Fighting against this surveillance fence, fighting against it, probably even more so than people who are older are able to do, because of their already have some a spiritual immune system that God, it keeps evolving, right, to fight with what's here and what's coming. And so I just love it. I think it's fantastic to see how the youth are really, really waking up. We're seeing a huge tick down of trans identity, queer identity. We're just seeing a huge calming down of all of that. So we're going to see what the paid rioters and the No Kings things are going to do this weekend. Again, keep you and your family safe. Stay away from those areas. And yeah, I think it's going to be a big fail. I think God's with us, but I think that FFs are something to be really concerned about. So we're going to be checking it out, and we're going to be praying so massively for God's armor to protect this country, this nation, and humanity, as we have a huge warrior for peace trying to create prosperity and peace across the world. So, the ultimate Prince of Peace is Jesus Christ, and we've been lucky and gifted to have President Trump, and his evolution through his becoming, having been already endowed with incredible capabilities, okay, to basically evolve into this person who understands the massive role that he plays in world peace and changing a dynamic. And it's not everything, it's not all, but the rest is up to us. So let's get busy, but let's also pray, pray, pray. So good to be with you tonight on a Friday, TGIF, and you are free, and I will see you on Monday.